Good morning. Welcome to the November meeting of the Federal Communications Commission. Madam Secretary, would you please introduce our agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you and good morning, Commissioners. Today's meeting includes a consent agenda with one item. Please note the items listed on the Commission's October 2016 Sunshine Notice and item number 1 on the consent agenda have been removed from today's agenda. These items remain under consideration by the Commission. This is your agenda for today.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Would you please lead us through the process of the consent agenda, please?
Okay, so you will now consider item 2 listed under the consent agenda portion of the Commission's Sunshine Notice. And for your convenience, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we've provided each of you with a copy of the Sunshine Notice and the deletion notice.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, we have previously sought consent of all commissioners for the inclusion of the items on the consent agenda. We have removed from the proposed consent agenda any item for which we received an objection from any commissioner or which was voted. For the remaining consent agenda item listed on the Sunshine Notice, we've received no objection from any commissioner. Accordingly, I will shortly call the vote on this consent agenda. If you are voting to adopt the consent agenda item, please indicate by voting in favor. If you oppose the adoption of the item on the consent agenda, please vote oppose. With that, all in favor of adopting the item listed on the consent agenda, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The item is adopted. Would any of you like to make any announcements at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. At this point, I would like to take a moment, if you allow me, to offer my sincere thanks to my fall intern, clerks, I think we call them up here on the 8th floor or whatever floor we're on now. Megan's son, Adriana Odo, and Kelsey Rutherford, if you would stand, please. This incredible trio, they're intelligent, hardworking, and have shown a strong commitment to this agency. I want to thank them. And I express that I have every bit of confidence that Megan, Adriana, and Kelsey will do great things. We wish you well, and we will miss you. Thank you very much. And also, on I guess a bit of a somber note, I wanted to acknowledge the passing of two people. One of you know, and the other you might not. So a lady named Melva Lee, I never called her that because I don't even know how to say her name, but we called her Mickey Mitchell Thompson Vincent. And some of you might recognize her name. She was an African-American photojournalist in the D.C. area who covered social events in our community that everyone else would ignore. To quote a D.C. socialite, I don't know if she would have liked me to call her that, Laverne Chapman, she wrote on her Facebook page that Mickey documented the class, pride, and best of our people. Other papers ignored us. She highlighted and lifted us. So I wanted to highlight and lift her today. She had a page that she would distribute in a number of newspapers, including the Afro, the Washington Informer, East of the River Political, and the Washington Examiner. It was called Social Sightings. And when I would see her, she would almost force me to take a picture. And those of you know me know I cannot stand taking pictures. But Mickey would admonish me and said, look, this is a part of history. You are a part of history. Take this picture and pose. And I would pose, foot out, you know how you do the social pose. And honestly, I would look okay in the end. So she will be missed. And I'm going to quote Jelani Cobb on this one. It is a particular cruelty that Gwen Ifill, who was a standard bearer for journalism, a mentor of young reporters, and a profoundly decent colleague, should depart now when the country has never been more in need of those qualities. Gwen Ifill, I don't have to tell you, was a giant of a woman. She saw me one day, you might have seen this in my Twitter page, saw me walking by myself one day. And she said, "Are you by yourself?" And I said, "Yes." She said, come on over and join us. And on the next social gathering she invited me. Not only was she a trailblazer, you know all of that. Not only was she a person who broke glass ceilings, trampled those floors, and did all types of things that we will remember her forever. She was an incredibly decent woman. It wasn't easy for her. Her first internship, she suffered among the most insensitive racial injustices that a young person ever could imagine walking into a newsroom. But she said she had work to do, and she did that work well. She will be missed. Mickey will be missed. These are two women who chronicled history accurately and nobly. So, Mr. Chairman, excuse me for being a little emotional this week, but I think these two women need to be uplifted. These two women are the embodiment of what excellence in journalism and historical chronicling should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for keeping us focused on the important things in life. Commissioner Rosenworcel?
No, but thank you to Commissioner Clyburn for such graceful words.
Mr. Pye?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, want to thank Commissioner Clyburn for her remembrances. And I also had a few staff announcements, not from my office, but from this agency. People with long tenures in public service who are leaving the commission. First, Bobby Brown. Not that Bobby Brown. He spent 23 years in federal service, including in the U.S. Air Force, and he is retiring at the beginning of next month. It's his prerogative, you might say. I'm glad somebody remembered the reference there. Next, Sandy Falk, who spent 43 years in federal. 43 years, that's incredible dedication to the public interest. Is exactly right. That's why you stole my line. So she was started at the FCC when I was born, the year I was born. So, but she's just turning 29, so I'm not sure how to make those numbers work. And last but certainly not least, Gloria Miles, Miss Federal Register, as she's known in the agency. A lot of people on the outside don't know exactly how the paperwork works when we vote on something and how does it get out into the public and what makes it official. She is the gatekeeper. She's the one who puts things in order so the Federal Register can publish it. She's just a remarkable worker, and I know her from the time when I was a staffer in the Office of General Counsel, and one of my jobs was trying to streamline the processes, make it easier for things to work. And I spent an afternoon with Gloria, I don't know if she even remembers it, where she walked me through how complicated this stuff is. And I'm so grateful we have people like her who spend their time in this agency making our work product better and helping it get transmitted to the public. She's departing, and I'm not sure who is going to fill her shoes, but they're really big shoes to fill. So maybe we just add it to Marlene's plate since she's so competent at everything else she does. But anyway, I wanted to thank Bobby, Sandy, and Gloria for their time here at the Commission. Even though they're departing, we'll always remember them very fondly.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Commissioner O'Reilly?
I just appreciate the kind words from Commissioner Clyburn. That was very kind, very nice.
Okay. Madam Secretary.
The next agenda meeting of the Federal Communications Commission is Thursday, December 15th, 2016.
Until then, we stand adjourned. Thank you. Vultures Row.
Good morning, everyone. All right, I'll turn it over to the chairman.
Thank you, Kim. Well, we certainly had a quick meeting this morning, and that abbreviated meeting was obviously a consequence of the requests to avoid action on issues that were deemed controversial during this transition between administrations. certain of my colleagues identified the items on today's proposed agenda as controversial and asked that they not be considered today. I hope that this doesn't mean that these issues won't be quickly addressed after the transfer of leadership of this agency. It is unfortunate that hospitals and small businesses in search of competitive alternatives will be denied that opportunity. They deserve better from this commission. It is truly disappointing that 1.4 million Americans living in rural areas without LTE service will continue to be so deprived. They deserve better from this commission. And it is tragic that 1.3 million Americans who are blind and millions more who are visually impaired will not be able to enjoy expanded video description. They deserve better from this commission. All of these matters are so-called controversial because they are opposed principally by the largest incumbent firms in the sector. As the deferred items reflect, when so-called controversy is the result of choosing between the broader common good or those incumbents preferring the status quo, I believe the public interest should prevail. Be happy to answer any of your questions.
Margaret, you want to start there?
Margaret.
Margaret McGill with Politico. I want to start off by asking, given the results of the election, do you intend to resign? And if so, can you say when?
Thank you, Margaret. As you know, I serve at the pleasure of the President as chairman. I am committed to a smooth transition. I have not decided on a departure date, but I will keep you posted.
Kyle Daly, Bloomberg BNA. Just wondering, do you see any backstops sort of preventing some of your bigger initiatives from being rolled back under the next administration?
You know, everybody is, that's the line. I think it's an important thing to remember that taking a fast, fair, and open internet away from the public and away from those who use it to offer innovative new services to the public would be a real mistake. That taking away network privacy that consumers enjoy as a result of our decision would be a real mistake. That taking away connecting everyone, whether you're a school, a library, a low-income American, or a person in jail, taking that away would be a real mistake. And the taking away the concept that the American economy works best when there is competition, 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 would be a real mistake. David.
Chairman, David Hatch, Merger Market Group. The FCC has faced a lot of criticism that its authority has expanded on mergers, privacy, broadband, and other issues. Do you expect a Trump administration to scale back the agency's authority?
So I'm the last guy in the world to talk about what the Trump administration intends to do.
Are you concerned that the Trump administration could gut the agency's authority on these key areas and other areas?
Well, I think I just answered the question about if somebody comes in and wants to take away fast, fair, and open internet, take away consumer privacy, take away access for schools, libraries, low income, and walk away from competition, I think there are serious consequences of that. But I'm not the guy that's been making those decisions. Lydia.
Did you have 3 votes for the items that were taken off the agenda yesterday? And should we read into the fact that they were deleted that you won't be voting on any other big issues in the remainder of your tenure?
So, Lydia, I'm not here late in my tenure going to break my rule of not talking about what votes were. You can obviously talk to the offices and ask them, but I'm not going to violate their confidences on that. I hope we'll continue to be able to do some things on circulation. These all remain on circulation. I sure hope we can get them done, and there will be a vehicle to do that if necessary, appropriate. Monty.
Monty Taylor, ComDaily. Chairman, should a company or an association's political stances matter when lobbying the FCC? Do companies that express concerns about Trump, do you have any idea about how they can lobby his administration or going from your experience?
Monty, I don't think that's an appropriate question.
Wasn't my idea.
Howard Busker, ComDaily. I'm going to try to ask an appropriate question since there's been a lot of talk since last week about how there have been so many 3-2 votes, and there wasn't a lot of consensus on a lot of the big items, and in retrospect, do you wish that at times you maybe had worked harder to try to get a consensus on some of these big items, because maybe they'd have a longer legacy?
So, Howard, 85-90% of our decisions are unanimous. Okay, so you kind of start there. Governing is deciding, and you decide based on principles. There are plenty of opportunities to try and work out things. But when you start from a no or I won't even take this up, it's hard to have any kind of a discussion. Votes are how we resolve things. We see it in the Congress all the time. We see it in the Supreme Court all the time. We see it here all the time. Votes are how we resolve things. I, kind of go back to the previous question. Let's look back at those 3-2 votes. They created a fast, fair, and open internet that has expanded broadband penetration, that has expanded investment in services over the internet, that has expanded fiber, that has resulted in increased revenues for those being regulated. They resulted in privacy, network privacy for Americans. So the same thing that they expect from their telephone, they get when they go on the web from their networks. The 3-2 votes expanded services to schools, expanded broadband to low-income Americans, provided that prisoners could have a 15-minute call with their kid, didn't have to pay what you and I have to pay for a month's worth of cellular service. And they practiced the idea that is imbued in the American economy that this is all about competition. So, I'm surprised that those kind of things are 3-2 votes. I think those are important principles. And that's where we stood.
Hi, Jenna Ebersole, Law 360. Specifically on set-top box and business data services, those seem to be perhaps the two most controversial items left. Do you think there's any room for consensus? Do you realistically think they get voted on circulation in the rest of the year?
We'll keep trying.
Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Jim Husengaro with the LA Times. Are you considering staying on the commission beyond being chairman if Jessica Rosenworcel is not reappointed?
I don't have any news on my departure date, Jim.
Hi, Brendan Bordelon, Morning Consult. Senator Thune yesterday, when told about the cancellation of the votes, said that the commission seemingly overreacted. He was saying that the letter was only referencing some of the most controversial items. What's your response to that? And if you agree with the senator that your colleagues overreacted, can you sort of...
Well, I'm sure you read the statement that was put out by my colleagues, and they officially requested that all the items be taken off the agenda. I think the action speaks for itself. Oh, look at this is like Phil Donahue, walking. You guys aren't old enough to remember Phil Donahue.
I could get a little stool and we could do a show jacket over the shoulder.
Yeah.
How important is it to you that once you leave the commission, Democrats be able to have a 2-2, be able to maintain a 2-2 tie at the commission until President Trump nominates a new commissioner? Is that an important thing, or does it not matter if Republicans have a 2-1 majority?
I don't think it's something in my control.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Brian Funk from the Washington Post. Chairman Walden has sort of suggested that he'd be open to working with Democrats on net neutrality legislation. Would you encourage Democratic lawmakers to work with him on that?
Well, I think it's always worthwhile when people try and work together. We tried to work together here on net neutrality. The difference became one of whether you had empty net neutrality with the title but not the reality, and the other is whether you had meaningful net neutrality. And I presume that's what the debate is going to continue to be.
Could you talk about Global Star's modified proposal regarding its terrestrial low power service, and do you hope to try and circulate something on that and get it adopted?
As you know, Lynn, the original proposal has been on circulation. There's a simple issue of commissioners indicating where they are that'll move it real fast.
Thank you. Ollie Breland with The Hill. Have you had any conversations with the President-elect's transition team on what a future role for you could be, or any sort of other transition things?
I love questions like that because it allows me to do a one-word answer. No.
Thanks.
Oh, look at suddenly reconsidering.
Well, I just want to make sure without the qualifiers, have you had any conversations at all with Trump transition people?
No.
Thank you.
Was there a qualifier there? Okay, no. Okay. Let me back up. Let me be real specific, okay? We have had no conversations with the Trump administration transition people. We are working with the transition structure that was set up by the Obama administration to begin the groundwork, but we have heard nothing from the group that used to report to me 8 years ago in the transition.
So this could be your second to last meeting, or maybe try to sneak in a two-part question.
Look at this.
But at least it's not about Ohio State, Michigan. Can you talk about what
you'd get extra points for doing that?
Can you talk about what you sort of most regret not getting done during your tenure? Would you do anything differently if you had to do it over? And then, do you think you'll still proceed with other issues of controversy? Not about rulemaking, but either on zero rating or resolving outstanding fines. There's a $100 million AT&T fine that's out there, for example.
So, do I have regrets? Of course. You remember it back, now I'm talking about Ohio State, that I used to travel around with Woody Hayes, I wish I hadn't thrown that pass. All right. But I think that the kind of things that this commission has done have been really important for America and Americans. And I'm proud of that. Okay. Thanks, everybody.